number 7 of Dana White's Contender Series. We only got 4 weeks left in Season 9. It's been a lot of fun so far. And when I took a look at this card, I do think we have a couple of really solid matchups to go through. And I think there could be a couple of decent fighters heading on into the UFC. But as always, it seems like there's always a couple of fights on this card where you're not really believing in any of these fighters in the matchups. And I think we got a couple of those as well. I'm going to go through all the fights. I'm going to give you some insight on each of the fighters in the matchup. I'll give you a breakdown of how I think the fight will probably play out. And then I'll leave you with a pick. But before we get into that, I got to give a shout out to the Dana White Contender Series Legend of the Week. Week number 7, Danielle Wolf goes in there, makes her pro MMA debut. She gets a win on the Contender Series. She gets a contract. She fights Norma Dumont in the UFC, loses, and hasn't been seen since. Has not been seen in the UFC since. So she went 0-1 in her UFC career, 1-1 in her professional MMA career. And I don't think she's coming back because I think that was back in like 2021 or 2022 she fought Norma Dumont. So she is the Dana White Contender Series Legend of the Week. And before we get into the breakdown, I got to give you guys a thank you because the support that we've had on last week's video and the entire Season 9 has been tremendous. So I got to thank you guys for the support on last week's video. 12,000 views, 538 likes. I gave you a goal of 400 likes, and you absolutely crushed it. So next week, I guess on this video, let's get to 600. Let's get to 700 likes. Hit the like button for me before we hop into this breakdown. It would be much appreciated. Hit the subscription button before we get into this breakdown as well. Let's hop into it. First fight of the night, looking like it's going to be a light heavyweight bout. We got Rafael Tobias coming in at minus 350 with his shirt off in the normal, picture that I would put on these slides. And then we got Jair de Oliveira sitting at plus 285 with a t-shirt on, some sunglasses on, and a couple of belts around his shoulders. And let me just say, finding a picture of this guy, after a fight or before a fight is impossible. It's impossible. Even if you go to his Instagram, you might find a couple of pictures of him with his shirt off, but they're very low quality. So I had to give you a high quality image, and this was the best that I could do. So that's going to tell you a lot about Jair de Oliveira. Now, Jair is 6-0, Tobias 13-1. So obviously more professional MMA experience for Tobias. Neither of these guys, I don't think are that great. But let's start with Rafael Tobias. Now, as I said, I appreciate you guys for the thank you, or appreciate you guys for giving me the likes on last week's video. So I take notes when I'm going through these guys' film. So I thought, why not just share them? Why not just make a slide and put these on the screen so you guys can actually see it visually? Because some people are more audio learners, some people are more visual learners, some people read better when they're learning. So I put my notes on here. So Tobias is professional since 2022, so he's had a lot of fights since he started. He's 0-1 in LFA, and that's really the highest level opponent that he's faced, was in LFA, and that was a couple years back, and he got knocked out. He got knocked out brutally, so that should tell you a lot. For a guy that's 13-1, the one time that he lost was when he took a decent level of competition, and he got knocked out. He's a brown belt in BJJ, based on his Instagram from what we can find. He's a guy that trains at Shoot the Box, not the one that Charles Oliveira is at, but the one in Curitiba, Brazil. Decent striker, but he could be pretty hesitant, man. I don't really believe in the guy striking. Like, he looks like he's a pretty big dude. Like, he could hit hard, but he's a little bit hesitant, not really confident in the way that he wants to strike. He'll look to mix in some takedowns, and I think in this matchup that'll probably be his best path to victory. Will he take it? I don't know, because this is a Contender Series, and some guys that are better grapplers than the other, just you're not going to grapple because you want a UFC contract, you want to get a knockout. So he usually does look to mix in some takedowns. I think that would probably benefit him here in this matchup. But overall, I'm just not really sure what he wants to do. Like, when he's in there and you're watching him fight, it's not really sure if he wants to be a striker, if he wants to be a grappler, but he kind of blends it fairly well, but not really to a point where, it looks like the guy just is a primed fighter is what I'm trying to say. And then, of course, the competition looks weak. You're looking at most of his wins. A lot of these are like 0-0 guys and just very low level of competition. So that's Rafael Tobias. On the other hand, Jair de Oliveira, professional since 2015, but he didn't fight at all from 2015 to 2022. So he had one fight and then comes back in 2022, and then he's been fighting a little bit more often, but he's not fighting anybody good either. His combined record of opponents is 11-12-1. And you really can't find any film of these guys. I had to do some deep digging to find his film. And of course, he's a light heavyweight guy fighting bums. So, I mean, the film that you can actually find doesn't last very long. He's going in there and getting finishes pretty much. And actually, in one of the fights, he took the guy down with kind of like a blast double. And he wasn't even like landing ground and pound, but the ref just stopped it. The ref stopped it, gave him the win. Very sketchy stuff. Very sketchy stuff. He looks like he gets kind of fat, as you can tell by the picture on the screen. For a guy that's 5'9", supposed to be making 205 this Tuesday, he can get pretty out of shape. Now, based on his Instagram, he looks like he's in much better shape than he is in this picture. But let me just tell you, this guy can get fat. This guy can get fat. He fought at 243 pounds before in the heavyweight division. But overall, his fight style, decent leg kicks. He's deceptively fast. For a 5'9" guy that can get a little bit fat, he's kind of got like that sleeper explosive build where they're low to the ground. They can rip hard leg kicks. His hands are pretty fast, actually. I got to give him that. So he's kind of like a sneaky athlete that gets a little tubby. But I think he's going to come in on Tuesday in much better shape than, what you would see from his Instagram when he's not in fight camp. Very limited film, as I said. You can't really find too much on the guy. So how does this fight play out, man? I really think if the fight is on the feet, Jair de Oliveira is going to have his opportunities to knock Tobias out. Because I don't think Tobias is a very, elite striker. And I think Jair de Oliveira has that deceptiveness to his game to where he could clip Tobias on the feet. But if I'm Tobias, I've got a lot more professional MMA experience. Sorry for the stroke. It's a little bit early in the morning. A lot more professional MMA experience. I'm the taller guy. If I get this guy to the ground, I don't think this guy, De Oliveira, has much of a ground game. So I think that's probably the best path to victory there. And I think the skills are on the side. I think the skills are on the side of Tobias. So I'm going to take Tobias for the pick. It's kind of a cop-out, but I just don't really think these guys are that great. And I do think Tobias is probably the better overall MMA fighter. So give me Tobias. But at minus 350, I'm not touching it. I'm not touching it whatsoever. And if this line, climbs to Tobias minus 500, minus 600, I might have to take a shot on De Oliveira by KO because, like I said, dude, I mean, the guy is powerful. He's low to the ground. I think he is fast. And I think he could clip Tobias, who's been clipped before. So give me Tobias for the pick, but with a lot of hesitancy. Moving on to a featherweight bout here. We got Justice Torres coming in as a plus 150 dog, taking on Javier Reyes. Reyes, 26-fight veteran, Colombian guy. Justice Torres, 12-3, 27 years of age, so he's the younger guy here, stepping in on relatively short notice. Javier Reyes was supposed to fight Akaro Brito, and I think that was kind of a setup fight for Brito, one of the Fighting Nerds guys, and then they matched him up with Robbie Ring, and I think Robbie Ring sucks, and then I guess Robbie Ring pulled out. So next steps in Justice Torres. Justice Torres is the third opponent for Javier Reyes. But let's talk about Justice Torres, man. Professional since 2021. So, 15 fights in 4 years. He's a 4-ounce fight club guy out of Houston. And, I'm kind of a believer in the 4-ounce fight club camp. That's the Joshua Van camp, the Alden Correa camp, who we just cashed in on in the UFC. At Noche UFC as a big plus 330 dog and plus 800 by KO. Shout out to Alden Correa, Justin Torres' teammate. He's a southpaw striker, and I don't really think he's on the level of like a Joshua Van or even an Alden Correa as far as the boxing goes. But he does look like he has just some pretty solid technique. He'll throw some solid combinations, mostly boxing heavy. He'll throw some kicks out there, but he's very patient on the feet. And I think that might be due to most of his competition is looking to grapple him. So he might just be a little bit patient because he doesn't want to overextend himself and get put up against the cage and then get taken down. But him being patient on the feet does allow him to be accepting of the back foot. I think in this matchup it'll be really bad if he comes out patient and he accepts the back foot, because we'll talk about how Javier Reyes fights, but I just don't think it's going to be that great. His takedown defense is decent. It seems like it gets better as the fight goes on because he'll get taken down, I don't want to say fairly easily, but he'll get taken down relatively easily early on in the fight. And then once his opponent starts to slow down, I think he can defend those takedowns a little bit easier. But early on, his takedown defense doesn't look very good. But he is hard to hold down. So I got to give him that. He's getting taken down, but he's not getting put in bad positions. He's hard to hold down. He'll work to get back up. The problem I have with that is when he does get back up, at times he will re-wrestle. And I'm like, dude, you're going up against these guys that want to grapple you, and you're trying to re-wrestle them. Why are you re-wrestling when you should just get back to space, get back to your striking? But he will do it. He will re-wrestle. I don't really like that. And he can be reversed in a lot of grappling scenarios. So let's just say he re-wrestles. He ends up on top. He'll get reversed. So I just don't think this guy's grappling game is all that great. But he has shown he's not going to get submitted. So he's tough on the ground. He's never been finished. He's only 3 losses that he's had are pretty much all fights that went to decision, and he's getting grappled up and losing minutes on the ground. So he can give up minutes, but he doesn't really give up bad positions, and he works to get back up to his feet. And if he doesn't re-wrestle, then I think he can win some of those fights. But Javier Reyes, on the other hand, professional since 2014. 2-2 in the LFA. He got knocked out badly by Larian Douglas, who we saw a couple weeks ago that knocked out Cam Teague. He lost to that guy. He got one shot knocked out by him, which isn't the worst thing to look at considering what he did to Cam Teague on the Contender Series. But overall, this guy's striking is super stiff, man. When I first started tape on this fight, I'm watching Javier Reyes strike, and I'm like, good Lord, please, Justice Torres, show me something that's nasty on the feet that you could knock this guy out. And I didn't fully see it, but what I saw from Javier Reyes is this guy's striking sucks. Like, I really think this guy's striking is going to be a real problem at the UFC level. But he's a good grappler, and I think he needs to get the fight to the ground in this matchup and in any matchup that he has at this level to find success, because he leaves his chin in the air. His punches are very stiff, and they just don't really do that much. His takedowns are kind of slow. I do think if he wants to get his takedowns, he has to set them up with his strikes, or his opponent across from him has to be very tired. So I don't know that this guy has a lot of abilities to get the fight to the ground, but if he does get it to the ground, he's pretty good on the ground. And he's pretty good grappler on the ground. He's got good ground and pound, and he hunts his submissions. As you could tell, he's got some finishes on his record. Level of competition, probably not the best, but he will look for those submissions on the ground. And most of his KO victories are from, ground and pound from a dominant positions on top. So I do think Javier Reyes is going to be the superior grappler here. But every fight starts on the feet. And this is the Contender Series. Do we really want to see Javier Reyes going in there, failing takedowns, where Justice Torres is throwing some punches? So how does this fight play out to me? With the short notice of Justice Torres, it does give me a little bit of a hesitancy because, if you're going to go up against a grappler, you probably want to have a good amount of camp to prepare for that type of grappling. But this guy's basically fighting everybody that he fights. They're trying to take him down. So he's had a lot of fights that would kind of prepare him for this type of matchup. I don't think Reyes' striking is good. I don't think Reyes' wrestling is good. I think if he needs to win this fight, it's got to be on the ground, and he's got to be in dominant position. And I don't really think Justice Torres gives up those dominant positions. So I'm going to lean with the dog here. I'm going to take the underdog at plus 150 on Justice Torres for the pick. I just think, his wrestling base is probably good enough to stuff the takedowns of Javier Reyes. Then it's a fight on the feet, and I think Justice Torres is the better striker. So give me Torres for the pick here. Moving on to some women's, we got a flyweight bout here. Sofia Montenegro coming in at minus 180, taking on Jeisla Chaves. And Chaves is the undefeated fighter here coming in against the 6-1 Montenegro, who has been knocked out before, which is kind of weird to see in the flyweight division, and we'll talk about that. But both girls relatively the same size, relatively the same age, relatively the same amount of professional MMA experience, so that is even, but we got a favorite at minus 180 on Montenegro. Let's talk about her. She's a professional since 2021. From what I picked up on her Instagram, she trains at the PI in Mexico, which seems like it's a pretty good spot to train nowadays. It's the PI in Mexico. They got a lot of good coaches there, and I'm sure they've made a lot of investments into getting good coaches and good training partners in that area. So that's good for her. On the feet, she's not afraid to let her hands go, and that can get her in some trouble at times because she is throwing a lot at you on the feet, and her defense is lacking. And that's pretty much what happened in the fight that she got knocked out in. She got knocked out in 10 seconds. She went across the ring, or across the octagon, I should say, just throwing her, 1-2s, kind of like blitzing type of style. She gets caught with a right hand. She basically did a full depth squat while she was knocked out, and then came to while she was in the squat, got back up to her feet, and then got, finished off there. So, I mean, this girl is very hittable on the feet. She's been hurt in other fights, and I don't think her level of competition is that great either. And in some fights, she's had to get those takedowns to win the fight. So there's some hesitancy there for a girl that, I don't think her striking is very good. I don't think her defense is very good. She should have had a leg kick TKO in her most recent fight. And honestly, I don't know how she didn't get it, because the girl she was fighting, not good. And she kept hitting her with these leg kicks. And I think it was like maybe early on in round 2 where the girl could barely stand. She was trying to switch stances. She was in orthodox, and she kept getting her front leg chewed up. So she went southpaw, and she's basically fighting on one leg, and Montenegro couldn't finish her. She won the fight by decision. I'm like, how are you not finishing her? She had a couple of times where she ripped one of those leg kicks. The girl was basically on one foot up against the cage, just like this. And Montenegro's throwing these wild punches, and she's whiffing every single one of them. She's trying to go for like a fight-ending sequence, and she's whiffing every punch she's throwing when there's literally a heavy bag right in front of her. So she's aggressive. Striking is inaccurate. Her defense on the feet is terrible, in my opinion. But her ground game seems to be decent. If she can get the fight to the ground in this matchup, I kind of think she's probably going to have an advantage. And she has used that to win fights. But her level of competition looks low as well. Jeisla Chaves. I think it's Jeisla. I don't know. Jeisla Chaves. Professional since 2023. She has yet to fight a girl with a win in MMA, which is pretty bad. It's terrible. I mean, if you haven't fought a fighter with a win in MMA and you're fighting on Dana White's Contender Series, that should tell you everything. So level of competition, I said, was bad for Montenegro, but it's even worse for Jeisla Chaves. She's a demo fight, she's one of these demo fight fighters where she's managed by the guy that runs demo fight. I think he's her coach as well. So, I mean, she's getting absolute layups, and there's very limited film that you can find on Jeisla Chaves. If you type her name into YouTube, you'll find a couple of Muay Thai fights. So she's obviously got a Muay Thai background. I think they were amateur Muay Thai fights, and I wrote it down because it's kind of funny because the promotion is called CTE MMA. Hilarious, but you can watch some of those Muay Thai fights, and you can kind of see how she wants to strike. A lot of 3-2s. Some decent leg kicks. She likes to be in the clinch, and she'll like to hit you with some elbows. So I think the clinch work could be decent here, but she has no head movement at all. No head movement at all, and you can't really see that it's a flaw when you watch her fights in MMA because she's not fighting anybody good that can really make her pay, but she keeps her head on the center line, and all of her fights are pretty much just target practice. It's like there's a heavy bag right in front of her, and she can just do whatever she wants to it. And yet she's still been to 2 decisions. So do I think Jeisla Chaves is very good? No, I don't. So, I mean, this is just a matchup where I don't think either of these girls are very good, but I do think Montenegro is probably the better of the two. So I'm going to take Montenegro for the pick. She's at least fought fighters with wins in MMA. I do think in the striking, Chaves will have her opportunities to hit Montenegro with something bad because I don't think Chaves is like a terrible striker. We haven't really seen it on any type of level. So, I mean, if she comes in here and hurts Montenegro early, I wouldn't be shocked. But I do think if Montenegro can get, her striking going, and if she can mix in some grappling, I think she can win. So give me Montenegro for the pick here. Disgusting fight, though. And I'm not going to be laying -180 on Montenegro either. All right, much better fight here. A much better fight. Promise me when I tell you that. Or believe me when I tell you that. Brayhan Zurcher coming in here at -137. Murtazali Magomedov sitting at +117. Both guys undefeated. Both guys 9-0. Both guys relatively the same age. Zurcher is 29, 26 years of age for Magomedov. But big thing that jumped off the board to me was the height difference here. 5'11" for Magomedov and 5'6" for Brayhan Zurcher. Now, these are regional measurements. I had to get the height on Magomedov from one of the fights that you can watch on YouTube where they put it in centimeters. Then I had to put that into a calculator. It gave me 5'11", kind of 5'11 and a half, nearly 6 foot for Magomedov, and 5'6" is what Tapology says on Brayhan Zurcher. So one thing to just note there is the height difference. Let's talk about Brayhan Zurcher. Zurcher's professional since 2021. He has kind of gained some notoriety, I guess, because he trained periodically with Team Habib, with Islam. So he's been to Dagestan. He's one of these Mexican guys. I don't want to say one of these, but he's a Mexican that has gone over to Dagestan and trained with Team Habib. So that's cool. That's obviously good that he's getting good training in there. But I got to, kind of pump the brakes on that because, is he just being brought in there to be a training partner, to be a body that they can have that is willing to show up and train with these Dagestani guys? Like, just because you train with a fighter or a camp doesn't mean you're on their level. But at the same time, you are getting the good experience at that level. So it's good, but I wouldn't really read in it too much. He's 5-0 in PFL. That's going to jump off the board because PFL is, one of these major promotions in MMA. But one of these thing that PFL does with these prospects that they have is they match him up very lightly, like very, very lightly. And I was familiar with Zurcher because I bet on him a couple times in PFL, and he's cashed me in. But his level of competition in PFL is not like, it's not PFL level of competition. It's kind of like a regional setup type of thing. But either way, he's got it done every single time. He's a very technically sound fighter. When you're watching him fight, you're not really going to see like a ton of chaos. You're not going to see him making big mistakes. He's a solid striker from the outside, fights behind his kicks. He's going to throw a lot of kicks from range, and he kind of just wants to break you down with those kicks. There's not going to be a lot on them. He's not going in there just whacking you with big low kicks and hoping that they cause you a lot of damage. They're kind of just feelers from range. And then he's going to try to time his striking with his hands, going to time some uppercuts, some 1-2s, and some simple combinations. He had a nice left hook combo that put out his last fight or last opponent, and I cashed in there on Zurcher by KO. But very simple fighter, keeps it very simple, but very technically sound. Good wrestling as well. If he wants to shoot some takedowns, I'm sure he's not going to be scared that he's going to get his takedown stuffed, especially training with Team Habib in the past. So, very good all-around fighter. But, I do question the level of competition a little bit, even though it is in PFL. I think he's looked really good, but we haven't really seen him in, bad spots before. So, got to keep that in mind. Let's talk about Murtazali Magomedov. Professional since 2022. He's the amateur Gamma World Champion in 2021. So, after he won the Gamma World Championship in 2021, he goes pro. He'll look to mix up some striking and grappling. To me, I think he wants to be a striker, like to start out. But a lot of these guys that he's facing are looking to take him down, and then he turns kind of into a grappler. His striking, to me, doesn't really look like it's as clean as Brayhan Zurcher's, but it looks like it could be a little bit more deadly. He's really fast. He's very fast, and I think that's going to be a difference here between Zurcher and Magomedov is the speed and the size. And I think Magomedov's going to have some opportunities to land some big shots on Zurcher and in the scrambles. If guys are trying to take him down, he's very fast with his scrambles, whether he gets taken down for a second and then he's looking to either snatch something up with a submission or hit a reversal. He's very fast on the feet, and he's very fast in the scrambles, which is big. Speed is a big thing in MMA. But on the feet, he's quite hittable. He's been hurt a couple times in his fights, especially his most recent fight. I thought he got knocked out in round 1, but he was able to recover, and he ended up winning that fight. His takedown defense is okay, but I think he's just so confident in his submission game that he wants to be aggressive on the feet. And if you look to take him down, he'll get taken down, but as I said, he's fast in the scrambles. He's fast to threaten with a submission, and he's got 5 submissions on his record, all wins by finish. Good knees in the clinch as well. If he, is able to reverse you up against the cage, he's going to dig some knees in there. Good knees in the clinch. So, that is another dangerous aspect, especially for a guy that is this big, 5'11", nearly 6 foot as far as what they said on the regional film. I think Magomedov can get this one done, man. I think he's he's just going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit faster. I think he's got more finishing upside here as well. And I think he's fought the better level of competition. I think Zurcher's solid, though. It's not like I really think Zurcher isn't UFC level. I actually think both guys are UFC level. But I think Magomedov's danger factor is a little bit higher here against Zurcher. But I could easily see Zurcher knocking out Magomedov for a guy that's been hurt on the regional scene as well. So, I mean, I'm going to take Magomedov here as a slight underdog just because I think the size and the speed is going to be a big factor. I think he can finish the fight on the ground. I think he can finish the fight on the feet. And for Dana White Contender Series, finishes do mean a lot. And I think Magomedov has more finishing upside here. So give me Magomedov for the pick. All right, before we get into the final fight of the night, I want to remind you, if you want all my bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks Premium membership. There's a link down in the description below. You can use code DANA for a 7-day free trial to get all my bets on Dana White Contender Series and the UFC on Saturday. On the year, we're positive 70.56 units in net profit, getting closer to our 100-unit mark we hit in 2024. And we've also hit some big payouts, especially on Dana White Contender Series. We hit a 14X, a 15X, and last week at Noche UFC, we hit the 20X. Those are very recent big payouts that are an extra bonus for the premium members. All right, final fight of the night, the feature bout. We got Dani Barbir coming in at minus 118, taking on Mantas Kondratavicius, sitting at minus 102. So a very closely lined fight, and neither guy has ever seen the scorecard. So I think we can expect to see a finish here. Kondratavicius, the only guy with a loss in this matchup. Kind of cool to see these different countries week in and week out on the Contender Series. We got Croatia and we got Lithuania. It's pretty cool to see. Both guys are young, both 6'2". Couldn't get a reach measurement on either guy, but I assume they're probably relatively similar in reach, considering they're both 6'2". Let's talk about Dani Barbir. Professional since 2016, but if you look at that, he had a 3-year inactivity gap between 2016 and 2019, and then another 3-year gap between 2019 and 2022. So he's had some weird periods of inactivity, but since 2022, he's been the Fight Night Championship champion over in Europe, I believe. Orthodox striker, very boxing heavy. I think he's a guy that looks really fluid on the feet. Like, you can tell his main martial art, I want to say, is probably, mostly boxing, because he's got more of a side stance, and his arms are usually very loose. But he does throw some kicks. He'll throw some front kicks. He'll throw some spinning kicks, which are kind of weird to throw like a spinning kick from a boxing style stance, but he'll do it. And he hangs in the pocket a little bit too much for my liking. He's a guy that throws very clean combinations with his hands, but he'll kind of throw those combinations, and he's not really, stepping back, stepping out of range. He's kind of throwing his combinations, just standing there, waiting for you to throw something back. So he is very, easy to hit, and he can be hit clean. I've seen him hit clean. He will look to wrestle offensively. Not really his first option, but if he wants to mix it in, he will mix it in. His takedown defense is okay. Defensively, I don't really think he's some amazing grappler, but for most of the film that you can find on him, guys aren't really able to take him down easily. But there are some points in the film when you watch it where he's not in the best position, but he'll find his way out of it. He will jump on some submissions on the ground as well, which could be a big deal in this matchup, considering the other guy, I don't know how to say his name, honestly. I apologize to anybody that's Lithuanian, but that name is crazy. The other guy that he's fighting, Mantas, his only loss is by submission. So if Barbir can get the fight to the ground, he will jump on a submission. He's hit an anaconda. He's hit an arm triangle choke. Got to put that out there as a possibility. The problem with Barbir that I saw mainly, that could be a problem in this fight as well, is his cardio looked kind of shaky. In the only fight that hit round 2 that you can find film on, the guy was starting to look pretty gassed. So, I mean, if this fight does extend into round 2 and round 3, I think both guys will be gassed, but Barbir definitely looked like he was feeling the fatigue, but he did still get a TKO late in round 2 there. So that's Dani Barbir. Let's talk about Mantas. Professional since 2021. He's 1-0 in Cage Warriors. That was his last fight. He got a knockout in like 40 seconds or something like that. He was a kickboxer before MMA, so he's got a long, history of fighting in kickboxing. You can really see that in the way that he fights in MMA. Very aggressive striker, nasty in the clinch, good knees, good elbows. He's kind of just one of these big, athletic kickboxers that goes over to MMA and just wants to overwhelm you because he feels very comfortable on the feet. He knows that he can take a shot. He wants to overwhelm you with his physicality. And if you try to take him down and negate that physicality and that speed and that striking, his takedown defense is, I think, I don't want to say purely, but it's heavily relied on him just being more physical than these guys because most of these guys are looking to take him down. You know, they don't want to stand and strike with him. So they're looking to take him down, but he's just so strong in that clinch that he'll just dig the underhook or hold you with the overhooks and just burst his hips into you so you can't get to his. So, yeah, I mean, his takedown defense is heavily relied on physicality. If he goes up against a good wrestler or if the fight extends, I think that takedown defense can be had, and it has been had. You know, he's had some clear grappling holes. His only losses to the 8-0 Virgil Again, where he's a good fighter. So, I mean, it's not really a bad loss, but he got grappled up really badly in that one. He was getting taken down with relative ease against the guy that can actually wrestle. He got taken down, bloodied up, and choked out. His cardio also looked a little bit shaky in round 2. In one of the fights that you can find in round 2, he did win it. He got finished in round 2 by Again, but in the one that he did win, he looked like he was gassing out, but he just had a little bit more to give than his opponent in that spot. So I think this is a great fight. It's a great fight, and I think it really just comes down to who is able to land the punch, who's able to land the big shot first. And I think it could go either way, but I do think Kondratavicius, as the slight underdog, is going to be the pick for me. I think his kickboxing background, his activity, him fighting, him taking his first loss for one is good for him. He's the younger guy. I think he might be the better athlete. And I think Barbir, his boxing style, is going to allow him to possibly land some shots, but it also allows him to get hit clean. And I think one big thing in this matchup could be the clinch work. Kondratavicius loves to crash into the pocket, get into the clinch. And I don't really think Barbir is very comfortable there. He kind of wants to be in the boxing scenarios, or he wants to be wrestling offensively. I think Kondratavicius is going to give him some troubles in that clinch work. And I think he could land either some big knees or some big elbows and just kind of wear on Barbir, who looks like he could slow down as well. And I think he can get a win here. So give me Mantas Kondratavicius for the pick here in the feature bout. That's going to do it for the video. Appreciate you for watching. Like the video for me before you leave. Let's get to 700 likes. Hit the subscription button for me as well. Appreciate y'all. Till next time, hey, job picks.